In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Walking Dead miniature game. I'm going to give you the pros and cons and let you decide if it's a game you should play. The Walking Dead was a fantastic comic series which moved into a slightly less but still great TV series. It then moved into less and less great other series, and then finally I think there's going to be a movie. It's got a little bit out of hand, but at the base of it, at the original comic book, growing up just reading that, it was one of the standout comics, standout stories, characters. The Negan arc with Glenn was one of the biggest shocks I'd seen at that point. I hadn't seen stuff like Game of Thrones and other things. Absolutely blew my mind. It made me feel sick. I didn't read the comic for I think months after that, honestly. I took a break. So the source material is fantastic and it lends itself perfectly to a game in which not only do you have to worry about the player across the table from you, also the zombies wandering around the map. Now let's talk about the game. It's made by Mantic games, and I think that's a plus. The fact that there is a named title is a slight negative. Obviously, they've always only got a certain amount of shelf life. It's an IP they're paying to have that property printable by themselves, so it's never going to last forever. However, the game did end and Mantic revived it so they could finish the game for the players, so they could release all the characters before it's finished. So once they've all been released, then you are going to have access to everything in the game and in the series, and all of those characters you love. So I think in general it's a massive positive. Mantic Games, a fantastic company, do some really good stuff over there, so it's in safe hands. They are committing to finishing this. So if there's some character in like the last few, I don't even know if it's finished. I haven't read it in so long. But if there's a character further on that you want to see, it will eventually be in this game. So let's talk about the characters then and the miniatures themselves. They look pretty good. They're not the highest quality miniatures. There's enough detail on there so you can really pick it out with some paint schemes. Painting up zombies is just a ton of fun. I would recommend it to anyone. If you've never done any like undead or creepy or bloody or anything like that type of miniatures, this is definitely the game for you. It's just fun painting up the undead. You get to paint some of your favorite characters. There's also something in this game where you can build your own characters. So if you've got a miniature of yourself or you want to paint one in a similar scheme and introduce yourself into this world, which is really cool. Not a lot of games offer that. I would like to see that in more. There's so many titles I play that I would love to appear in myself. Lord of the Rings, the main one. Very easy to put together. A lot of them do just come made already, which for me, the building is my least favorite part of it. The constructing, just putting them together, it's like I want that done so I can paint them and then eventually get them onto the table. I would say I'm more excited each stage, so I enjoy painting, but I absolutely love playing the games. And these, just skipping that first step is a massive plus for me. It does mean when some characters are holding guns slightly awkwardly, it's very difficult to paint around them, but I'd rather have that. I always get my models all together. Like I say, get the building phase out of the way as quick as possible so I can focus on the fun stuff. And these miniatures are full of the fun stuff. Now, I will say one negative, as I've given a few positives already, would be some of the new resin stuff feels it doesn't feel as strong. And it's not painted up yet, but I've had characters where the arms don't match what was in the, I don't know if you can see that, I'll do some close-ups anyway. The arms don't match what was on the screen grab or the render of the character on the website. I don't know if I got sent a wrong arm or something like that. I think it's worth noting though, I've seen some people online say similar things. As I say, they do look great and there's not too much construction to them, there's not too much building, you don't need much prior experience. But again, I think it's worth at least mentioning. Small things, this could be very much, it's only happened to me, but I feel like I definitely saw some other people say they had similar issues. It's not something that's going to happen in every set. Like I say, most sets are already built. It's very much the new resin stuff, and it's probably something that isn't going to affect you. But as I say, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't at least mention it. Back onto the positives though. The gameplay itself is some of the most fun I've had in tabletop gaming. It's not just an all-out war, so you're not just trying to kill your opponents. It's more an objective-based thing. And as you dive around the battlefield and pick up these objectives, random things happen. So you could find a gun, you could be ambushed by a walker, you could accidentally set off a trap and someone explodes and you take a load of damage or even die. It feels very much like the world of zombies. It feels very much like the world it is trying to imitate. It's random, it's exciting, it's different every time, which all massive positives for this game. Just to piggyback onto that then, just touching on the randomness, some people might not like that. For that reason, it's not I wouldn't say it's an overly competitive game. I think if you're coming into this one, your aim should be to craft a story, to enjoy these moments, like I say, We had a game where I think it was my other half. She set off like all the booby traps in the deck somehow, which is just, it's ridiculous moments like that, which, yeah, it's why I love wargaming, and this has it in abundance. I would say another massive positive for me is the time it takes to play a game. It is very quick compared to like a full-scale war game. It is very much just a small skirmish game. As I say, you're gonna have like half the size of a regular war game, the map itself, but also there's not as many actions. You've got maybe a group of 3. If you play some higher points games, it can get a bit bigger. You obviously move the walkers around as well. If they do this, like they're always trying to get somebody. If someone shoots a gun, they're going to pile over there. And I think that ties into how good the system is. Those moments which you would expect from the series, or just how things work, happen in this game. So you fire a gun, it causes mayhem. Zombies are going to rush you. It's just, so there's a good chunk of miniatures on the field, but the walkers are very easy to maneuver. You use like an AI system. So do you actually want to fire the gun? When is the best time? You can also use that to your advantage. So if there's people in between the zombies and you could lure them over into them. It's just, there's so much to it. It's so much fun. As I say, there's so much silliness and cool moments and these slight tactical things you can do. Characters have special abilities. I honestly can't sing the praises of the gameplay enough. And at the end of the day, I think that is the most important thing about these war games and whether you should play them. I would say the price point is another positive for me. You don't need much to get going. I mean, the starter sets, especially the older ones, you can find online very cheap. You only really need that handful of characters, and then you can play as many games as you want. I think a pack of 3 characters is around £15. You get the cards as well. And honestly, you could, again, just play with that. You've got your own terrain probably from other games. You can use that. You can pick up a deck of cards, which is the only other thing for the game you'll definitely need. Maybe some of the special dice, but you can always proxy them if you have to. You can get going with this game very quickly, very cheaply. And I think that's always a massive positive. For games like Warhammer and other things, having that massive investment before you even get to try the game can be daunting, and this definitely doesn't have that. In general, I would say it's a fairly cheap game. They do massive bundles of characters and models and other stuff. Very cheap on Mantic games, so it's honestly the perfect time to get into it. So if you're looking for that extra miniature game, then this might be the one for you. The other positive I wanted to touch on was the game mode. So obviously you can play the regular one. There's also a campaign you can play through, so there's story modes. Any game that has that sort of built in and it's sort of thought about when the game was designed is a massive plus for me. You get a ton of them in the rule books and the all-out war book and all of the stuff, all of the extra expansions and other things. You can play through the comic books, so some of these expansions, like you can play at Herschel's Barn and stuff like that. You can play at the prison afterwards. There's so much. It's not always easy to get together with a group of friends and play some games, so having the option to play that solo mode, and obviously running a channel like this is absolutely ideal. So having that solo mode is a massive plus. With the campaign and story, I just love a bit of, you know, extra spice to my war games. Not just an all-out deathmatch, but you're trying to do this and then you move on to the next part of the campaign. Maybe you've lost a character and you find some new ones, and this happens and that happens. The other thing that is a massive plus for me is multiplayer. Now, I don't mean just 1 versus 1. I mean like 4 players, 3 players, upwards of 6 to 8 players. I think this, more than a lot of other war games, enables you to do it. I don't think many war games aim for that many players, but this one, you're not just dividing forces. You can get away with 4 different players. I honestly think most games of this I've played have been 4-player, and because of the rules of multiple combats and maybe 2 enemies and a zombie being in a fight, it has rules for that in the book, so it's very easy to work out how it would work with multiple players. Obviously, you can increase the map size and you can get creative with it, and I think just having the option to include more players, a little more intuitive than other war games and other skirmish games, is a massive bonus for me. Most of my game nights, like I say, are 4, 5, 6 of us. So having the option where I can't in other games is always great, and it makes it a little easier to get this one to the table. But that's my list. Let me know anything you think I've missed. Maybe there's something you really enjoy that I've not mentioned, or maybe there's something you dislike which I haven't mentioned. Drop it in the comments below. That is all I've got for this episode though, so I will catch you in the next one.